Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Think It Through, the program that educates, inspires, and motivates. Well, it is good to see you. We have had a long break, 3 weeks. We have been away. We have been following Let's Talk Him. I Follow Jesus evangelistic series. And here we are. We are back. And I want to welcome you, those who are present here. It's good to see you, the Bukatan lady, and those who are joining us here on the Zoom platform. We also would like to extend a very special welcome to our friends and followers on YouTube and Facebook. We missed you. We know it has been a long break, but we are delighted that you're here with us. And we have been having a lot of rain. Rain has been pouring all over. And there is no doubt that there are persons who have been severely affected by the downpouring of rain over these many days. And we regret even those who have lost their lives. And we continue to pray for those families and those who have been affected in one way or another. But we are delighted to have you here, and we have a program lined up for you. We normally have our focus, but this evening we will not be having our vox pops and our value statement, but we will be going right into it. And so at this time, we're going to have Tahisha. She's going to be singing for us. And after Tahisha, then I'll pray, and then we'll go right into our PowerPoint presentation. And the topic for discussion this evening is poverty, systemic or self-inflicted. We will be looking on that. Is poverty systemic or self-inflicted? We're going to have that discussion later on in the program. So let's listen to Tahisha as she sings, and then we'll go right into it.
Father has a plan, though it's hard to see it now. You feel you're walking alone, but he's there no love. When the storm around the angels, when the storm through my door, when the facing like decision, not sure which way to go, stand still and let God move. Standing still is hard to do. When you feel busy and He'll make a way for you, stand still and let God move. The enemy surrounds you, and the walls are closing in. When the flames are swiftly rising, and the walls are closing in. When you never want the moment, and the friends are reaching out, when you rest assured, be secure, God is moving right now. Stand still and let God move. Standing still is hard to do. We feel you everything, He'll make a way for you. Stand still and let God move. The answer will come, but darling, this time, stand still and let God move. Stand still and let God move. Stand still and let God move.
Just stand still and let God move. Let us bow our heads as we pray. Sovereign God, we thank you so much for allowing us the privilege to be here again on this program, Think It Through. We are grateful that you have kept us and you have preserved us. And we are so thankful for those who are here on the Zoom platform. We invite your presence to be with us, that you will guide us in our deliberations as we listen to your word and be informed and educated. May we be inspired and motivated on our path as we do your bidding. Thank you for hearing and for answering, for we pray in Jesus' name. Thank you very much. So here we are. Again, we welcome those who are here with us. So we ask you right now to invite your friends, click that like button and subscribe and let them know that this is where they ought to be as we continue with our program here on Think It Through, the program that educates, inspires, and motivates. We have been looking on the whole matter of the biblical worldview, which is very important, and we have been focusing on that. We started out with the whole matter of the 6 pillars of character development, and we have been looking on the whole matter of the biblical worldview, and we cannot overemphasize how important that is. And for those who are currently studying the lessons, you would have had upper hand to see persons who are just studying this topic. So, integral to one's understanding of biblical worldview is a knowledge of the integration of faith and living. And that is what we're saying. And there are 4 fundamental areas that we are covering under this area. We have covered a Christian knowledge environment, a capacity for self analysis. And we will be focusing this week and onward on the third area, a decompartmentalized faith. What is that? We will be unraveling that as we go through this evening. And then the fourth section, critical thinking skills. We will be unearthing those. So here we are looking on the whole matter this this evening on decompartmentalized faith. What is that? Decompartmentalized faith. And I would just like to say right here and now that for historical reasons, ranging from pietism of the 19th and early 20th centuries to the contemporary cultural pressures exerted by scientism and secularism, there has been a tendency to fragment reality, the fragmentation of reality, dividing the spiritual from the material, and to encourage the view that religion is a private matter, largely unrelated to the secular issues of the day. So these are teachings that we are experiencing, and so that is why it is very important for us to look on that. All right. Now, general unification questions that we must ask when we deal with the whole matter of decompartmentalized faith. And let me back up a little. When we talk about compartmentalization, is that people put a separation between one's spiritual life with one's physical life, one social life, one emotional life. We are saying that we cannot live our lives in fragmentation. There must be a coming together where we see how one area affects the next. And that is what we will be looking on this evening. Now, these questions seek to give persons insight into the big picture. All right. How do I understand the claim, for example, that all truth is God's truth? How do we reconcile that? So, in our quest to find truth, yes, we are saying is that all truth is God's truth. So, no wonder Jesus says when we read the word, he says, "I am the way, the truth, and the life." So, all truth should lead to God. How does the fact that I live in a world created by God affect the way I perceive the world and understand the world? These are questions that we have to contemplate, and you will find as we go along the answers. How can I apply Christian knowledge as a touchstone of evaluation to test other knowledge claims? And we looked at some of that before, that there are a number of knowledge claims, and we must be able to filter those knowledge claims through standards. Yeah. What are the criteria for evaluation or values? Yes. Then we come to a conclusion, and then we decide that we are going to accept that knowledge claim that is made upon us. Very, very important as we proceed with that. Now, uh, another way, another way another way to view the rejection of a compartmentalized faith and the embracing of a biblical based integration is to say that Christians must pursue a grand unification theory borrowed from physics that explains the interrelatedness of everything in the moral, spiritual, and physical world. So there is an interconnectivity between everything that takes place in the world. Very important to view that as we go forward. Now, as a way of beginning the unification process, three interdependencies must be examined. All right? Now, these three pairs of ideas are often split and held to be independent or nearly independent of each other. Now, to help persons unify their thinking, these pairs must be recognized as ultimately inseparable. So they are inseparable, and that is where we are going to go as we look on some of these things. Inseparable. They are inseparable. And that is how we have to view them. And here is it. This is very crucial to your understanding of the whole matter of decompartmentalized faith. Now, when you compartmentalize, you will say that there is no link between your behavior and your belief. But in a decompartmentalized approach, you will understand that one's behavior affects one's belief, and one's belief affects one's behavior. All right? It's very important that we pay attention to that. Now, much of the time we do follow our beliefs. So that is true that our beliefs influence how we behave. I know you will agree with that, that your beliefs influence how you behave. But it is also true that our behavior influences what we believe. And this is why it is so important for us to pay attention to that. Now, Aristotle says that virtue is formed by habit, by repeating it. Yes, that is what he says. Or moral characteristics develop from corresponding activities. So the more we carry out certain actions, they are also impacting on our mind or thinking processes and what we believe. Very important as we go forward. Now, as mentioned above, ideas have consequences for action. At the same time, our actions reveal our real belief. Yes, our actions reveal our real beliefs. So, how people will know what you believe? They are going to see it in your action. So, if there is a dichotomy between your action and your belief, then there's a term that is used for that. So we have cognitive dissonance. That means there is no coming together of the thought and the action. It is very important that we do that. Now, if we say, for example, let me give you a simple example. If we say, for example, that we love grape nut ice cream. I know there are some persons here who will say, Pastor, I don't like ice cream. But we're using it as an example. If we say we love grape nut ice cream more than any other flavor. So we say we love grape nut ice cream above, yes, or more than any other flavor. But we always order pistachio. We say we love grape nut, but every time we order pistachio. Now, our true belief about ice cream will rightly be questioned. Because if we say we love grape nut ice cream, then if we love grape nut ice cream, then grape nut ice cream is what we should order. But we say we love grape nut ice cream, but we order pistachio. So that is an example, a simple example of how that works. And we have to be careful when it comes to our behavior and our beliefs. So our beliefs affect what our behavior will be. So when you hear people say, it doesn't matter what you believe, it doesn't matter what you believe, that will cause you to question some things. Okay? Now, the Bible also teaches that faith is an activity. Faith is an activity, not just a state of belief. Jesus tells us, he says, if you love me, you will what? Keep my commandments. So your belief should be demonstrated in the activity of, of obeying God's will or God's commandment, which would be shown in your behavior. Now, we are to develop values that influence our behavior. We cannot overemphasize how important that is. Now, do I know the scriptures? Let me ask this rhetorical question. Do I know the scriptures that call me to live out my faith? That show that faith is an activity. What text can you think of? Yes, in the Bible that will you can use as a reference to your faith, that when people see that, then they can know exactly what you believe. There's a question. Do I realize my behavior over time both reveal what I really believe and shapes that belief? It cannot be plainer. So we have to be very, very careful. So we can say one thing, but there must be congruence between what we say we believe and what we demonstrate in our action. Very, very crucial for us to pay attention to that. Now, intellectual and spiritual. So when we talk about bringing together the intellectual and the spiritual, there must not be an intellectual separate from your spiritual. Now, there are persons who will tell you, as I've said some time ago, is that person says, all I need is faith. I don't need any knowledge. All I need is faith. And there are those who will tell you that they believe that faith and knowledge or reason, yes, faith and knowledge, they are inversely proportional. So it's like faith is at one end of this pen and knowledge is at the other end. They are saying the more faith you have is the less knowledge you will need. And they also say the closer you move to knowledge is the less faith that you have. I'm saying that is compartmentalization. You need both, because the Bible says you must have a reason or a knowledge for the faith that you embrace. So there must not be a separation between the intellect and the spiritual, because the intellectual assent will also affect your spiritual life, and your spiritual life will also affect your intellectual assent. Now, ultimately, and there we have it there, what we believe intellectually influences what we believe spiritually. Do you believe that there is a God? It will affect your spirituality. If you believe that there is no God, it will affect you. If you believe that God is an absentee God, like the Stoic says, that he just created the world, wound it up like a clock, and leaves it to operate by itself, and you believe that, then that will affect how your spirituality, because you will say, well, boy, there is no need to pray to God because he is out of touch with us. He's out of touch with us. He's just distant away from us. but then we know that in him we live and move and have our being. So that is also very important. And the more than just spiritual belief, what we believe intellectually influence the quality of our spiritual life. So there should not be any compartmentalization, and we are arguing for a decompartmentalized faith. Now, when it comes to faith and intellect, compartmentalization is marginalization for faith, and that wouldn't be healthy for us at all. So we need to avoid that. All right, getting there. Now, in the same way that our intellectual commitments influence what we believe about spiritual matters, so too our spiritual life influences our intellectual life. And I can tell you, when there are some things it requires faith to believe, and you cannot prove it intellectually. So that will affect your balance intellectually. For example, we cannot prove the existence of God. However, there are evidences to suggest that he exists. For the heavens declare the glory of God, and the firmament show it his handiwork. In him I live and move and have my being. So even though intellectually, as the scientists would say, we can't put him in a test tube and prove that he exists. But because of my spiritual connection and my faith, then it also impacts my intellectual assent that I accept the fact that even though I can't prove the existence of God, but I can go by the evidences and I can trust him, and that will give me a sense of calm, a sense of assurance as we proceed. So it is very important. Now, this is what Anselm meant by his dictum, credo ul intelligum. In other words, he says, I believe in order that I may know. Proverbs 1:7 puts it this way: the fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. So we have to understand how closely they are linked together as we go. All right. Now, if I were to ask students to reflect on this connection, interconnection, um, will help them understand that compartmentalization of faith and intellect should be avoided. So, in other words, young people and those who are listening, adults alike, if if I were to ask you to reflect on the interconnection, this will help you to understand, based on what we are saying, that compartmentalization of faith and intellect should be avoided. You should avoid it because it is detrimental to you. All right? Detrimental to you and to your development. So that is very important. And these are some questions that I will close with that you can ask. Do I recognize that my intellectual beliefs influence my spiritual beliefs and life activity? So these are some questions. All right. Do I recognize that my spiritual beliefs influence my intellectual beliefs? And so if you haven't been doing that, then you need to pay attention to it. Do I understand the connection between the intellectual and the spiritual? We try to put that aside. Yes. And we always say, well, we need secular knowledge because secular knowledge will help us to survive here. But is that affecting your spiritual life? Do I understand that biblical knowledge is a type of knowledge and that it is an essential part of my total knowledge base? So we need that because it is not observation only. nor experimentation. There is revelation, revelation from God, which we have in His Word that we need to base our faith on. Do I understand that all knowledge needs to be interconnected and coherent? So if you are getting some knowledge that causes you, yes, to doubt God, yes, then you have to question that, because all truth is God's truth, be it scientific exploration and the quest to understand the world and how things operate, then we have to conclude with that. All right. So this is where we will stop this evening. Next week, we will continue with the compartmentalized faith, and we will look on fact and value. Fact and value. And next week, value will be restraint. Restraint. And then the hot button issue for next week: genetic engineered foods, are they safe for human consumption? Genetic engineered foods, are they safe for human consumption? Well, we will go through that next week, and so you need to prepare for that. I know you're ready for your questions, and I know the bright folk are ready to jump on that. So I am just going to give you now easy question, because we have been out for a little while. So I am going to ask you a brief question. Brief question I'm going to ask you. All right. And here is the question that I want to ask you. Simple and straightforward, and you're going to type it in there so that you can get it. I said to you earlier that um, the when you look on the whole matter of general unification questions, we should look on the big picture, the big picture. All right? Look on the big picture. So all I want you to define for me now, I want you to define for me your understanding, an example, a brief example of of decompartmentalized faith. A brief example of decompartmentalized faith. Okay, I think that is easy. And then you can type it in there, and then you will get your gift. So we look at compartmentalize, what it is when you separate the spiritual from the, all right, all right. And then you have decompartmentalize. What does that mean? All right. And you give an example for that. Thank you very much. Next week, we will be right here as we continue to look on this whole matter of biblical worldview. All right. We will take a break, and then we will be right back for the Bukatan lady. The Bukatan lady will be right here to give you her gifts and to talk to you about the whole matter of what you need to read to develop the mind. And then after the Bukatan lady, we will go right into our discussion section.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Bookathon segment this evening. I'm so excited to be back. We were on a break, but we are now back. We are ready to read, and we are as excited as ever. I hope you are as excited as I am. So, the last time we met, I gave you an assignment, a reading assignment, and it was from this book, Messages to Young People. And the chapter was chapter 19. And if it was this particular copy, it was found on page 43. So the title of the topic was Strength of Character Through Conflict. And I really, really enjoyed this reading because it spoke about how Nazareth was really a rough place and it wasn't a very good place to grow up, because you heard Nathaniel asking, can anything good come out of Nazareth? So Jesus didn't grow up in the best of towns or in the best of environments. However, he kept himself spotless by staying connected with his father. So, I want to first congratulate Shauna Kay and Damian, who won the last time we met. And uh, I hope that you guys are on tonight and ready for your question. It's super easy, true or false, and it's from the book Messages to Young People and from the chapter entitled Strength and Character Through Conflict. Here's the question. True or false? Remember, you need to click on my name in the chat and answer true or false. And if you are on YouTube, you can go ahead and type your answer in the comments section, and I will see it there as well and make arrangements to give you your prize if you have answered correctly. True or false? Christ followers are not dependent on place, fortune, or prosperity in order to live blameless lives? I want to answer so quickly. I didn't even finish. True or false? I'll repeat just for the YouTubers. Christ followers are not dependent on place, fortune, or prosperity in order to live blameless lives. I see the answers already. I see the winners already. Congratulations in advance. For next week, our reading will also come from this book, Messages to Young People, and the chapter will be chapter 102, entitled Individual Responsibility. Is every individual responsible for their own lives? Yes. Young or old? Yes. So we're going to read from this book. The chapter is entitled Individual Responsibility, and it's chapter 102. Not page 102, chapter 102. So I hope that you enjoy the reading for this week, and I will see you next week. And also, look out in the comment section. I will contact you to give you your prize winners. Take care until next time.
Thank you. Thank you very much. There you have the Bukatan lady. And I can tell you, remember, it is very important for you to read, and develop the mind. Because remember, what you put in, no one can take it out. And you need to be informed. And you have good books so that you can keep informed. Well, here we are. We need your fulsome participation now. And so you know what you have to do. And then they will be monitoring those who are on Facebook, on YouTube. You too can participate. We're going into the topic. Tell me what you think. Is poverty systemic or self-inflicted? I need to hear from you. What is your take on that? Do you believe that it is systemic or self-inflicted? Now, while you get ready to answer that question, I want to give you a brief definition, a definition of the whole matter of poverty. What is poverty? And do we have different kinds of poverty? We are going to look on that. And is that systemic? Must we blame the system? Well, I am poor, and the poor you will always have with you. And so we blame the system for being poor. Or is it self inflicted, or both? We need to hear from you. Now, what is poverty? Now, persons, it is defined as persons with income less than that deemed sufficient to purchase basic needs such as food, shelter, clothing, and other essentials. Yes, these persons who are in that category is considered or designated as being poor. So I need to hear from you. Is it systemic, or is it self-inflicted? And we will go further when we look at some of the kinds of poverty. Let me hear from you at the onset. What is your take? You can unmute your mic or raise your hand. Use the raise button and raise your hand, and then I will acknowledge you, and then you can go right ahead and speak to us. It is your time. No, it's not a right or wrong answer. We are having a discussion, a mental stimulation, as we look on the whole matter of this this mal maladaptive experience in that is affecting so many. Come on, tell me now. Is it systemic or self-inflicted? Talk to me about poverty. Who wants to pick that up? Don't be shy. You can open the
Good
mic and
evening,
say it. Good
Pastor.
evening. Go ahead.
Good evening, everyone. I mean, it is true that there are some persons who are born with, well, born and already receiving a certain amount of resources. Um, let's see it this way. I think depending on the areas of this world that you're living in, there are certain systems that have already set up how it is that resources ought to be shared. We have the capitalist system where, it's a dog eat dog world, and you take whoever can make the most based on them identifying what it is that people need. You know, those are the persons who will make the money. Then there are those countries and economies that say, well, everybody must have pretty much equal share. But even when they say let's have equal share, you really don't have everybody having equal share. Some of the persons who will probably have access to a little bit more will be those who are more educated, those who can access and who can think through processes and who add value the most to their society. So there are systems that will prevent persons from ever getting wealthy. There are systems that will give that opportunity. However, there will be barriers to get across the line to access those resources. So it's hard for me to say, yes, right out, it's systemic, but I do know that's a mindset. And the reality is for those who want to jump the barrier into a wealthy place, we really have to start in the mind and think wealthy.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for your contribution. And we need to hear from others because we are going to unravel it. We are going to look very soon. I'll give you some of the kinds of poverty that exist. And when I share them, you might find yourself in one category or not. And who to tell? We don't know. And then we will look on the effects of poverty, because we see some things that are happening in our world today. We see some people demonstrating some kind of behavioral practices that society will consider to be deviant. and disruptive. And so we want to look on some of those. We will look on the effects of that, and we will see how that poverty affects even people, children in school, how poverty affect teachers who have to teach children in school who are experiencing these things. So we want to look at all of those as we unravel this topic, because whether we want to talk about it or not, it is affecting a whole lot of people. And COVID-19 um, has also pushed some people further into poverty. And so we will look on those. I need to hear from you. Anyone else would like to um, address that? Is it systemic or self-inflicted?
Pastor, I would just like to share what some people are saying in the chat. Shauna K, she says, all wealth is inherited either directly or indirectly, while poverty is the natural state of expenditure exceeding income. Therefore, if a person of normal intelligence does not learn to earn more than they spend, then poverty is inevitable.
Okay. Very, very, very profound. Very profound. Thank you for that. Now, I want to share with you. Anyone else would like to share on that? And you can feel free to indicate, use the raise hand button. But they're arguing that we have 6 kinds of poverty. 6 kinds of poverty. Did you know that we have 6 kinds of poverty? We have what is called situational poverty. What is situational poverty? Situational poverty is generally caused by a sudden crisis, yes, or loss, and it is often temporary. So when we have what is called situational poverty, we can look on environmental disaster. Like recently, when we have floods and all of that that destroy crops and livestock and your base, that can put you into what is considered to be situational poverty. Divorce or severe health problem can really cause you to be in what they call situational poverty. Then we have generational poverty. Generational poverty. What is that? Generational poverty. So if we have generational poverty, is it systemic or self-inflicted? Generational poverty occurs in families where at least two generations have been born in poverty. Yes, they are not equipped with the tools to move out of their situation. So you find people born in this thing, they don't have running water, they don't have this, they can't fend for themselves, and they find themselves in that situation, and they still carry out the biblical injunction to be fruitful and multiply and replenish the earth. And sometimes they have 5 and 6 and 7 and 8 children, and they're not able to fend. So it is a perpetuation of that kind of thing living in there, right? Then you have absolute poverty running through this, and then you can open the discussion. Absolute poverty, scarcity of such necessities as shelter, running water, and food. So it is day-to-day survival. People just get about there and they fend for themselves. So like COVID here now, it even worse because they can't stay in. The government just says stay in. They can't stay in because if they stay in, they're going to die because it's a day-to-day survival. They have to hunt for those kind of things to relate to that. Sister Ruby, you want to comment? That's all your mic is open. Okay, she's not ready yet. So let me go through the other 3 quickly. so that we can get it. Then we have what is called relative poverty. Poverty. Relative poverty refers to a family whose income, pay attention to this one, relative poverty refers to a family whose income is insufficient to meet its society's average standard of living. Interesting. Then we have urban poverty, urban poverty, crowding, violence, noise, and these persons are dependent on inadequate large city services, so they depend on the government to provide paths and some things to get along and to survive. Then they have the rural poverty. Rural poverty is where we have a lot of single parents household, single parent households with less access to services. Yes. Um, and lack of equality in education, educational opportunities. So these are some of the things. So let's hear from you now. We look on the 6 areas they say for poverty. And can we say that it is systemic or it is self-inflicted? And for those who are for is it a fact that some people poverty is self-inflicted? Talk to me. I need to hear from you now. And then we look at some of the effects of poverty because it is real and it is affecting people. All right. Let's hear from you. What is your take on it based on what you hear? And then we can look at the solution because we provide solutions right here. All right. So when we look at poverty, talk to me. I need to hear what is your take on it? What are some of the effects of poverty that you see in society today? And what are some of the contributing factor to the whole matter of poverty?
Pastor, just want to share some of um, the things people are saying on Instagram as well.
Yes.
So um, we had 2 people on Instagram who said poverty is both systemic as well as self-inflicted. 7 says it's systemic and only 1 says it's completely self-inflicted. So we have a poll there where the majority of persons are saying that poverty is actually systemic. And in the chat here, we have Kyle commenting, and he says that he believes it's both systemic and self-inflicted. There are some inherent barriers that prevent some people from breaking free from poverty. However, there are some behaviors, self-inflicted wounds, and poor choices that also help them into poverty. So that's from Kyle. And we also have KP who says it is a mix of both as well. Factors such as tax loopholes that burden the poor and favor the rich will keep some in poverty. Low wages, weak labor laws, and social biases can trap people in poverty. And Shanake again says the biggest reason for poverty is how a society is structured. Without structural changes, it may be very difficult, if not impossible, to eliminate disparities and poverty. Accordingly, poverty is systemic under victim blaming and self-inflicted by failure to realize it.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. We are not far removed. Let's look on our Jamaican context. Let's look on our Jamaican context. I strongly believe that we have enough resources in the world to take care of the inhabitants of the world. The challenge is the distribution of those resources. And I strongly feel that yes, it is systemic based on the structure of governance that we have within, let's take Jamaica, and we look at how the wealth and the resources are distributed. And I can tell you, the system is such that we need to look on the education system. We need to look on the banking system. We have to look on all the systems, the ecosystems, and we have subsystems that operate within there. For example, let's look at the educational system. Let us begin there. Now, they in the system of education, they have what is called elimination, because most people must be hewers of wood and drawers of water. Now, we believe in dignity of labor, but do the society provide does the society provide equal opportunity for educational development, which is the great liberator, so that people can be educated? And even within the education system, do we educate people to become employers? Or we educate them to become employees? And if such is the case, how can we liberate ourselves? We have common entrance, which is a system of elimination so that few people can get passes to go to high school. They have some Ivy League high schools with the resources and the opportunity, and they have second grade high schools for certain people who are marginalized in those areas. We see COVID has revealed the inequity within our education system, where some people don't have the basic amenities. They don't have electricity, they don't have cable, they don't have broadband internet to facilitate this kind of learning. So one set of people will be educated and another set of people will be reduced into further marginalized into poverty. So it is there. So I need to hear from you. What should we do? Should we just settle for it that it is systemic, or we have a responsibility to break ourselves out of that? Talk to me. I need to hear from you. No one wants to talk about this poverty issue.
There's a question here in the chat, Pastor, that's from Fred Williams that says, is being in poverty and poor the same thing?
Being in poverty and poor, the same thing. What do you think? What do you think? The state of being poor or being poor? What do you think? I think we can't separate them. We want to compartmentalize it. But the state of being poor is that you are within the environment, the conditions that really present you as being poor, because you don't have the income to deal with your basic necessities of life. So the state of being poor, and therefore you are poor because you can meet the demands, you can feed yourself, you can provide shelter, and all of those. So we can't separate them and say there is a difference between them. I think they are closely related. That would be my answer towards that.
Well, Fred Williams, if you are hearing, you can unmute your mic and also speak to this. He also commented and says, I was I was grown up very poor but never knew. So I think he's alluding to something here, but could you unmute your
Open your
mic and
mic,
let us?
unmute your mic, and tell us what is it that you have on your mind, and tell. And we can speak to the matter, and then we're going to look at some of the ills that are there. Don't be afraid to speak to the issue. You can speak to it. Anyone can look on the whole matter of being poor and what it is. Go ahead.
Yes, Pastor. Maybe we could look at poor being the poverty, being the borderline, the poverty. because it wasn't me alone, but majority of the children in my time. I remember even when my teacher sent to my parents and said, "Tell your mother to send 5 shillings to make you take common entrance." My mother said, "No, that have go and market. When she get 5 shillings, that have go and market. She can't find that for give extra education." The first time I wear shoes at 13-year-old, and my grandmother crept me borrow for wear go a sports. So and our food, all of us have to work the ground with our parents to get food. And when it come to spending money at Christmas time, when you find yourself with shilling, you want can't spend it. You have to make your parents tell you how that shilling supposed to spend. So I'm not sure if that was being poor or it was poverty or it was the borderline to poverty.
Based on the definition, you were living in the environment of poverty. You
Okay,
you did not meet the standard of what they would consider to be a person living outside of poverty. In other words, you had to sacrifice education for food. You had
sure,
to sacrifice education for food. So it's a means of survival. And they will tell you education, they used to say education can't eat. I remember sometimes they say education can't eat.
right,
And that is what they say education can't eat. So they have to decide that you get the basic amenity to support your existence. And at the same time, can I tell you that probably the environment in which you were operating, there were persons who your parents were working for, and they could provide education for their children. They could provide food for their children. If they need health care to go to the doctor, they can go. You couldn't go to the doctor. You couldn't go to the dentist. Your teeth look like rata eating it out. But they could go and they could look on all of these things. So we have to reach to the point where we now must understand what we need to do to change it. No longer can we be passive and sit down and don't look on these ills that are affecting society, and to make sure that we get fair shake for our work that we do. And people still are being enslaved, though slavery has been abolished. People are still being enslaved. So we need to look on this poverty issue because it is real, and we have to see to make sure that we do all that we can to lift our people out of the quagmire of poverty. Yes, yes, I'm telling you, it is there. What are some of the effects of poverty? We have emotional and social challenges. Emotional. So right there, you you are affected. You have to decide. Well, you can go. You barefoot. You have to walk barefoot. You borrow a crepe or your grandmother's crepe to go to sport. Right there, it had an emotional impact on you because when you go to the sport, you want to enjoy yourself, but you have to make sure that you don't kick grandma crepe. Fi buck off the toe of grandma crepe. You have looking down to see if people going to look and say, boy, it's a woman crepe and it is not a man's crepe. So right there, it is affecting your self-worth as an individual. So these are some of the things, and we still have it there. Nadia, go ahead, Nadia.
Pastor, I'm trying to well, I want to know if
Go ahead. Not hearing Nadia yet. She's trying to come on there.
anyone hearing me?
Yes, we're hearing you now, Nadia.
Okay, right. Elder Fred asked the question. He said that if being poor is poverty because he remembered himself being poor. But I'm thinking that being poor is not really poverty because being poor means that you give up one thing
so you can survive, which means that he mentioned that he asked his mother for something, but he said that that could be used for something else. So it's like opportunity cost to give up one thing to gain another. But poverty to me is more deep, as in you don't have anything to give up to survive. You're just at the end of it, you don't have nothing. So being poor would have been like the first stage of poverty, if I'm right to say that.
Okay, thank you for your comment, Nadia. I'll just go in based on the definition of poverty, which we look on your income, your earning, based on what you earn and what you need to provide the basic necessities. So, for example, food, clothing, shelter. So if you can provide food, but you can provide clothing or all of that, then you are in poverty because you can't break even. What you earn, it can't help you to live the lifestyle that society would consider to be normal. You can provide all the basic necessities. So you are in a state of poverty, being poor. All right. Thank you for that. Anyone else? Anyone else would like to speak about that? Anybody else would like to comment on that? So we look on the emotional. What are some other effects of poverty? Talk to me. Need to hear from you. What are some of the what are some of the effects of poverty that you can think of? Anyone else? What are some of the effects of poverty? What that you can think of? All right. You don't, okay. No, Nordia, go ahead, unmute your mic and go ahead.
I'm unmuted. Can you hear me?
Okay, go ahead. We have some connectivity issue there. We're not hearing you.
You hearing me better now?
Yes, I'm hearing you loud and
Right.
clear now.
You see that person.
You're gone again. Okay, we'll wait for Nordia to come back. We are not hearing her right now, and we need to hear from you. What are some other effects of poverty?
I think the most obvious would be like the health effects. For example, if you cannot afford to buy food, then you won't have proper nutrition and you won't be able to um, ensure that you are getting proper nutrition and feeding your family in the way that they're supposed to be fed. So for children as well as adults, negative health effects is definitely an effect of poverty.
Okay, thank you very much. KP, I think Nadia is having some internet challenges. So let's hear from KP. Go ahead, KP, and then we look
Yes,
at it.
one of the effects I think is crime.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, crime is
Mm-hmm.
probably one of the effects that we see on society. But the
Mm-hmm.
interesting thing about it is that poverty is not an excuse for it. But
Mm-hmm.
some people who come from a particular socioeconomic background find themselves one, but whether by choice or for some of them, they think it's, they have no way out and they engage in criminal activity. And I also think that sometimes they are criminalized as well. Whereas somebody who is rich might be, not necessarily given the full meet the full effects of the law. The one who comes from poverty will more likely end up in jail.
Can't
So
afford the
those are
lawyer
some of the
fee.
things that you look at, and then the cycle continues.
Okay. Um, and so true, so true, so true. Because has anyone here on the platform or watching on YouTube or Facebook experience hunger? You know what it is to be hungry? And you don't have no solution. When people find themselves where their back is against the wall, where their survival is based on a drink of water or a food, a bite of food, then if they can't provide that, and their children, they have children, and the children are crying to them, they're hungry and they can't find anything, and they come to you for help, and they say you can help them and you don't help them. These are some of the things they may not want to do it, but to survive, they may end up doing these things. We're not justifying wrongdoing. I'm just saying that where the system exists, where government is supposed to provide some kind of security and amenities to deal with the society, if the distribution of the resources are not there, where the rich are free to utilize whatever of the resources they want and the poor don't have anything, it's like they are patronized. So these things are something that is why we have to be careful about that. We have acute and chronic stressors. People are stressed. When they are stressed, anxiety and all of these things, they become irritable. A normally calm person would become irritable and deal with this. We have cognitive lacks where people, you're poor, you can't read, and you can't read, then you now become ignorant and arrogant in the process because you can't express yourself as you ought to. We have health and safety issues among the poor. You Shireen mentioned some of those. We have those things there. One, we have early death when children lack nutritious meal and they can't provide, they die young. Yes, we have disease, a number of diseases. Yes, diseases. Yeah, we have social problems affecting our people. All of these things. We have health risk and behavioral problems among our young people when they find themselves in that state of fear. How does poverty and being poor affect education in the classroom? We may have a lot of teachers here. Tell us how poverty and being poor affect the students in the classroom. Talk to me. How
A
you
hungry
think?
child cannot learn. A hungry child cannot learn. I
Hmm.
remember one time I was teaching, and this boy raised his hand and he said, Miss, I do understand because me hungry. A hungry child cannot learn.
Hmm. Right. And so our teachers equip to deal with students who are coming to their classroom who are hungry and can't learn. Our, our teachers equipped to deal with this in the classroom because listen to me, do these teachers have that deep understanding that listen to me, this boy really bad, really have maladaptive behavior, he does have attention deficit disorder, but this boy is hungry or this girl is hungry, but you say go out of my class, boy, and you fling the chalk and you say, boy, you're disruptive to the. These are things that are affecting society. And these are real issues. And we cannot take this poverty for granted. You have cognitive impairment. I remember, I remember primary school. Sometimes people have eye problem when reading time comes and spelling time. No, I don't know if I'm talking to real people on this platform here because it seems as if somebody you don't know what these things are. I need to hear from you. Do you experience these things and how can we solve them? It's not all self-inflicted because you say, boy, is your family cause that they know that them poor and yet they go have 10 children living in a one room, and so that is self-inflicted poverty. Talk to me. I need to hear from you. And how should we deal with some of these things? Our time is going on us here. Talk to me. I need to hear from some folk. I haven't heard from you yet.
KP raised an important point that I also want to touch on as well, and that is what is happening right now, where we have the COVID-19 crisis and we have switched to online learning, and you have children who there's and this is KP's point, lack of access of educational resources. Look at online school and the fact that many don't have access to devices or the internet, and that is a real problem right now, today, because of the crisis that we are in. We're seeing that COVID-19 has separated the rich from the poor. And those who can afford Wi-Fi at home, those are the ones who are learning. And those who don't have internet or data, they cannot access the material. And those are the ones that need it more.
Okay. So, right. So we see it as systemic, but it is also self-inflicted. And let me tell you why self-inflicted. There are some persons who will articulate that they are a part of a society, but they must not take any part in society. They sit back, they don't vote, they don't look on issues. All that they get, where some people are deliberate to keep some people in ignorance, so that when election time comes, they can give them a flask of rum, they can give them $2,000, they can sell them vote, and then they can get it there to keep certain people in power. And when those people are in power, then their friends benefit and they are still marginalized. We need to get to the place where we now become people who look on issues. My people who I am putting in there, use my democratic franchise to put them there, must act on making sure that my community develops. It has empowerment centers to provide skills training. Gone are the days when you don't see them after you vote them in and they're there, simply because we sit down and we accept it, because we say, well, oh, the Lord will take care of us, so we don't have to take part in it. And we allow certain set of people who not even think about the consequences that will come to us when policies are inhumane, when the people are not making policies that will benefit the people. All of this are all of these things are involved in us when we are passive and we don't take action to deal with these things. So we must look on these things, because we must get security. We see crime and violence all over the place. We are paying our taxes. We must get security. We must have good health care. So when we get sick, we can go and get a doctor and they don't look and say who should go there and who should get priority treatment. Every single Jamaican should have access to health care. Every single Jamaican should have access to education. And we can't sit back and expect that, boy, we must just go, because the poor we will always have with us. We must ensure that the system that is there in place do not further inflict on us, the populace, poverty, because many now are going into poverty, be it relative poverty, or they can't able to make ends meet, they can't pay their bills. These are some things we have to look on. Okay, let me hear from you what is on your mind. We have, you see, these things, brethren, they are so. When you see social problems in the land, social problems in the land, we must put things in place to address it. And all of us here has a responsibility. All of us has a responsibility. Sunday night, I asked the question in the sermon that I preach on this Zoom platform. I asked the question, and let me ask some of these questions again. Is the plight of the poor on the agenda of the church? And when we talk about the church, we are talking about us. How can we do that? How can we ensure that we help the people to move from one state to the next? We ask it, is there a disconnect between the church and the mission of Jesus? He said he came to minister to those people who are marginalized, the poor, those who are enslaved, those who are blind. These things are very, very important for us. Does the church embrace the people of the Beatitude? I ask these questions because we have to know that we all have a responsibility to make sure that we help people to think. And this is what this program is all about, to think it through. And you just don't fall in line and go in there. The time has come when we must be empowered. We must be empowered and to see many of us probably here, we have been working for a company, working for an organization, working for an institution, giving the most productive years of our lives working for government. And at the end, when you would have given all, who benefits from your labor? When they give you an NIS or a pension, aren't you in poverty, having spent most of your productive years? Because they have taught us to be employees and not employers. And few people don't even worry to go to school because they inherit wealth and they say, you don't matter need to go to school. You just continue the family business, or you continue to do this and you continue to do that. And you spend all of your money, your resources to go to school. And when you finish, you can't make anything out of it. The time has come when we must liberate our minds. We take the chain of our brain and begin now to think and think things through and to see how can we leverage what we have so that we can lift ourselves out of poverty and help to bring others out of poverty. And I can tell you that education is a great liberator. So we can't gamble with the education system. And what this COVID has shown is that many of our young people will be set back for years because of where they live, their geographical location, or based on the class that they find themselves in modern day Jamaican society. Slavery is still here, and we need to make sure that everybody has equal access to education. Because if that is not done, we're fooling ourselves. Stop allowing people to patronize us when we are going through, patronize us and to give us a little thing and we feel that we are right when it is not all right. Or people are still suffering, they are marginalized, we can't get health care, we have to depend on handout. COVID is here, how many ventilators are here? How many people will get ventilators if they get COVID? Who will get it and who will die? These are things, my people, we have to begin to look on that. Is poverty systemic or self-inflicted? We must stop and think about it. Let me hear from you. What is in the chat? What is on YouTube? Let me hear from you. Give me your comment. We are almost there.
All right. So we have a bunch of comments from Shauna K and also Jennifer. So I'll read them quickly. Shauna K says, so she's talking about the effects of poverty. There may be intense feelings of anxiety, depression, low self-esteem. Parents may face chronic symptoms from the effects of poverty, like stress and depression. Married couples may also feel marital distress and exhibit tougher parenting behaviors. KP also says Jennifer says, She would like to add that to fully understand the effects of poverty, the causes have to be rooted out to develop strategies to end hunger and starvation for good. KP also says students are poorer, who are poorer are often bullied and ostracized, and that can lead to antisocial behaviors.
Mhm.
Finally, Shauna K says, I believe all our lives could be improved if we consider the structural influences as root causes of social problems such as poverty and inequality. Perhaps then we could more easily agree on solutions.
Mhm.
So we have here, and other people also, Rayan, agreeing that education is definitely the way out. And KP asked, does the church keep people in poverty or equip them to get out of poverty? That's from KP.
The church, when we talk about the church, we're talking about the people. Okay, we can look at the structure also. I don't think that the church is deliberately keeping people in poverty. I can tell you that I being here talking to you is that my liberation and empowerment started in the church after I got baptized. Yes? Is there room for development in the church so that more people, there can be greater distribution, equitable distribution of the resources? Yes, there is room for improvement because even those who make the policies tend to benefit more from the policies. So we need to look on the structure, and COVID has really caused us to really take an introspective look at how we operate, how we utilize our resources within there. Because if we have the church and the church is not ministering to the people, it's a problem. And this is where we look about Christ's method. Christ's method alone will bring true success. Yes, in reaching the people. He mingled with men. He showed their sympathy for them. He ministered to their needs. He won their confidence. Then he bade them follow me. Yes, there is room. We need to begin to teach our people to become thinkers. And when people question some things, we don't see them as rebels. Yes, and we don't ostracize them. We listen to them. We hear what they have to say and try to provide solutions. I believe we need to have more empowerment opportunities within the church that we can help more people to see how they can empower themselves as we go forward. These are some of the things. They need to be a balance. And we as Christians have to take responsibility for some of the ills that are taking place in society because we are passive spectators instead of active participants. We don't want our voice to be heard. We are like, we just follow. When if it is popular, we will jump on the bandwagon. But if it is not popular, we are afraid to articulate because we want to be men pleasers. We can't be men pleasers. When Jesus came and walked on earth and he saw the atrocities and the injustice levied upon the poor, did he sit back and do nothing about it? No, he went in and he was revolutionary in his act to say, man, listen me, we have to help these people. We have to bring those who are on the fringes within so that they can be empowered. Because what affects one affects all. Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. Poverty anywhere is a threat to humanity everywhere. And so God expects us that we will do our part to ensure that the world in which we live is a better place. So there are a lot of suffering, social, emotional, cognitive impairment, or children who parents don't have it because they can't make ends meet. They have to prioritize whether they go to school, whether they eat, what they wear, going getting health care so that they can maintain their health, dental health, and all of these things. These things are affecting people. We see drugs and crime, the misuse of drugs and crime and all of these things happening in our society. It's simply because they have sometimes are not concerned about the have-nots. And we have to now begin to see how we can empower our people. We must use education to empower our people. Education is not just that which you get in the classroom. You can, if you have a skill, you have education. If you're a farmer, you have education. You have to study what to do and how to do it. So we need all the skills that we require so that we can take care of ourselves. Too many people are suffering. Yes, we have unsupportive homes, unsupportive home life because of poverty and its injustices based on policies that are marginalizing some people, where the rural areas are not getting the development and the amenities as they ought to. These communities ought to. So people do urban drift to go to urban areas where they live in subhuman conditions. Some of them zinc fence all around. They are ghettoized, and people are marginalized in the process and controlled by some people to get their ends. These things must go as a people. We must begin to educate our people so that we can address these. All right. What are some of the action steps that we must take? For those teachers in the classroom, we need deeper staff understanding as to how they can relate to students when they come in to this classroom, who may be coming from these homes where they have these needs. How do we deal with that? Yes, we need to change the culture from pity. Don't pity the poor. We must empathize. And by empathizing, we change the condition in which they are. Yes? Yes. So it's a new mission, and it must start with us to do our part. God expects that we must liberate, provide liberty to those who are held in captive. Yes? So we must provide that education. Free your mind, take the chains off your brain, begin to think and to see what God wants for you. Because not only do you have a purposeful existence, you have a divine origin. You came from God and you have a purposeful existence. You're meant to be here, and you have principles to live by. Yes, yes, you have people to live for, and you have a promise to look forward to. Let us as Christians do what we can to provide the education that is needed. So even if people are born in poverty, they do not have to remain in poverty, because opportunities will be provided so that they can escape poverty. Yes, I am passionate where this is concerned, because had it not been for the great liberation that I have received, first by surrendering my life to Christ, and then getting the opportunity of an education for me to see. Else, they would still keep me as the rustic country boy walking barefoot, have nothing in tear up bottom trousers, and feel that that is the ideal. That was what I was born to be. No, you didn't born to be that. The situation and the cultural norms have marginalized you into that. Let us do what we can to help other young men, other young women to be liberated from their true condition. It doesn't matter where you start, as long as you know where you're going. Think it through. Wants to help people to understand that there's a better way. And we are prepared to provide solutions as best as we can to help you to develop the mind, to provide that opportunity for you so that you can be the person God wants you to be. I thank you very much for joining us this evening on Think It Through, as we look on the whole matter of, is poverty systemic or self-inflicted? Whether it is structural or you have caused some of that, there is still hope to take you from where you are as we seek to liberate our people, even changing one life at a time. Let us bow our heads. Father, we thank you for another evening where we can come together to look on issues in our land. We can look on how you intend for us to develop, to know that there is no compartmentalization between the intellectual and the spiritual, between our beliefs and our behaviors. We pray that you will help us, that we will seek to create that synergy so that we can fully develop our minds and we can fulfill the purpose for which you have called us. Thank you for all those who have joined us on the Zoom platform and for those on YouTube and Facebook. We pray your blessing, and may we always seek to do all that we can to change one life at a time. These mercies we ask in Jesus' name. God bless you. Take care until we meet again, and we will be here. Invite your friends, subscribe, and join us. This is where the action is. You will be empowered, you will be informed, you will be inspired, and you will be motivated to go and make a difference. Until next week, see you. Be safe.